Well, welcome everyone. Really honored that you've chosen to be with us today and excited to have this conversation with our wonderful colleagues at Cherry Creek who are going to speak to us about the important work of creating licensure pathways, of supporting Grow Your Own, and supporting our educators and being able to get the support they need to stay in the classrooms where the students who they serve need them the most. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. It's a couple minutes past our start time, so we wanted to get moving to give enough time for our guests to speak today. I'm Scott Soldat-Valenzuela, Executive Director of AAEE, and we're really excited that you have joined us and look forward to learning more about the Aspiring Educator Pathway. A couple of announcements for AAEE. Our conference is in Pittsburgh this year, and it is it is October 27th through the 30th. We kick off the conference with a career fair in the evening of the 27th, and then 3 days of breakout sessions, general sessions, all focused around recruiting, retention, HR practices for bringing educators into your school district or a university. And the job fair itself is expected to have over 50 tables from universities from throughout the country. And if you're looking for more information, you can, I'll put it in the chat. Here is the details for our upcoming conference, and we hope you can join us in Pittsburgh. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Joey Pearson to introduce our speakers.
Thank you so much, Scott, and welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Joey Pearson. I serve as head of community at Moreland University, and I'm honored to be on the board of AAEE as our director of professional development. In that capacity, I find myself wherever I might be in the world, seeking out the incredible learning that I can to bring back to this great organization, AAEE. And one of the most impactful presentations that I have had the honor of seeing, not only at one conference, but I think at least at 2, maybe 3 conferences, is the conversation being led today on Aspiring Educator Pathways by this incredible leadership team at Cherry Creek School District. I've gotten the opportunity to know Brenda, Tamara, and Melissa, not only as colleagues, but as friends through the shared values that we bring to the table as we come to think about ways to enable folks to bring their passion and their purpose together and the great work of teaching children. So today's presentation is going to provide us with context around what we can learn about the Cherry Creek School District's innovative approach to enabling folks to become teachers, to then potentially apply in our own school districts and be able to think about strategic ways to create pathways for folks who want to be teachers. So it is with great joy that I introduce the Chief Human Resources Officer of Cherry Creek School District, Brenda Smith, as well as the Senior Officer of Talent Management, Tamara Spidell, and also the Assistant Director of Talent Management, Melissa Klemenz, to this wonderful conversation to lead us over the next hour. I thank you so much for your time today, Brenda, Tamara, and Melissa, and to all of the participants who have joined us. I will pass the baton to Brenda to start the conversation and tell everyone in attendance to buckle up because it is going to be an impactful hour of learning.
Thank you, Joey. You make us sound really, really great. My name is Brenda Smith. Like Joey said, I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for Cherry Creek Schools. This is my 32nd year in public education. So I've been on a wild ride from multiple different jobs, started as a 4th and 5th grade teacher all the way to where I sit today, which I've been in this role for about 11 years. And as you probably guess, in your states and across the country, what we're going to share with you today is our journey of how we've come from rethinking how do we develop future educators? Because as you all know, we've seen huge decreases in the number of teachers in going into regular pathways into education. And we're still seeing an increase in our total number of student population in the state of Colorado. So we're going to take you on that journey. Hopefully, if you have any questions at the end, we'll be able to answer those. But we're excited to be here, and hopefully you'll take something back with you, and we get to share, because I'm sure you're doing some brilliant things back in your districts too. So Melissa's in charge of the slides. There you go. So just a little bit about Cherry Creek, so you kind of know what type of school district we are. We have about 68 schools. Inside of these schools, we have about 150 different languages spoken. So we're a fairly diverse school district. We have 53,000 students. And the reason why I say 53,000 students is, as we think about how to recruit in the future to get people to go back into public education, we have 53,000 opportunities. We have 53,000 kids that we could potentially bring back into our school district. And so when I think about what it means to really recruit, you need to start recruiting even inside of your schools currently to see what potential you have to bring them back. We have 11,000 employees inside of Cherry Creek. So we're a fairly large school district. We're the 4th largest school district in the state of Colorado. And we have noticed in the past that it's a continuous competition for teachers, and really 70% of the teachers that we hired last year came from other school districts. So it's who's going to win the game this year and who's going to be able to fill all those slots. I know you know this information, I know you know this data, but over the past decade, we've seen about 30% of our teacher prep programs decline. That means we have less people going into public education. What we have seen in Cherry Creek is in many instances that attrition rate and the individuals that stay less than 5 years completely change and grow. We experience even teachers that leave halfway through the year, which we'd never experienced prior to about 5 years ago, right before COVID. Teachers leaving halfway through the school year, breaking their contract. That was very unusual for Cherry Creek. So what we have experienced over the last 5 years, or even since COVID, is this influx and continuous turnover inside of our school district. And we've felt as if we needed to figure out what was happening, what was going on, and why did we need to spend more time really digging into what does it mean to be a teacher, and how do we prepare our teachers differently. When 40% of the new teachers leave prior to their 5th year, we know that we're not preparing our teachers in the workforce the way that we should be. This slide right here comes from the Learning Policy Institute. And the reason why I share this with you is because I think it's important for each state to understand how attractive becoming a teacher is inside of their state. Colorado is actually fairly low. And it is mostly low because, one, it costs about $140,000 to get your teaching degree in a typical pathway inside of the state. The cost of living in Colorado is extremely high. And what we do know, and what we hear from many of our teachers who leave, is they can't afford to actually teach, live in our district, and pay off their student loans. And so when you have an attractiveness level from the Learning Policy Institute saying we're at a 1, we knew we needed to do something different in order to maintain and be able to support education. 4 years ago in Colorado, we had about 10,000 individuals inside of our teaching programs across the state. Once all of those individuals graduated, we still had about 500 unfilled positions. That was 500 positions across the state where kids didn't have a qualified teacher. When the apprenticeship laws passed across the country in many, many states, we knew we needed to shift and we needed to change. And the reasons why we needed to do this is because we know the most important thing inside of any classroom is a qualified teacher. Teachers are essential to the education system. We knew our current prep programs were not giving us what we needed. And we also knew that even the alternative pathway programs weren't preparing people the way that they needed to be prepared in order to be successful. We spent a lot of time talking in negotiations around teacher burnout and the problems around teachers and why they feel like they have to leave within their first 5 years. And that really got back to, are we truly supporting teachers, giving them the skills that they need in order to be successful once they step foot inside of a classroom? So our solution was, once our teacher degree apprentice program legislation passed 2 years ago, which was Senate Bill 87, and we were able to basically license and endorse our own teachers, we knew we needed to figure out ways to do this. And so one of the key things that you're going to hear about our program is we wanted to build not something that made it faster to get your education degree, but something that was really built around giving them the essential skills and practice in order to be successful, because faster isn't better. Faster wasn't going to keep teachers inside of the classroom. We built it around the residency-based training model. We wanted individuals to be able to see one, do one, teach one. What does it look like as you experience that in your training as a doctor? We wanted the very same similar training pathway for teachers so that they can experience it. We wanted to eliminate the cost barriers. We wanted to be able to actually say, you can go be a teacher and not graduate with $140,000 in debt. We wanted individuals to be able to experience it and want to be in that teaching field and and walk away with almost no debt at all. We wanted to talk about collaborative team teaching, because what we found from many of the surveys that we did with our teachers is that they felt isolated and alone inside of their classroom. So what does that mean to actually build out collaborative team teaching, and what does that look like? We also knew we needed to partner with a higher ed partner that was willing to work with us, to make shifts and changes and to adjust. And we struggled with that. We struggled with finding someone that was going to be willing to think outside of the box and not tell us we already do something very similar to that, just jump on board with what we have. And then we also wanted it to basically improve student outcomes. How do we create a pathway for educators that we know when they enter that classroom, they're prepared, they're ready, they're successful, they feel supported, and they want to continue in this profession just like me for 32 years. So with that, our approach was we wanted to build this pathway. We already had a future educator pathway inside of our apprenticeship programs, inside of our high schools, and juniors and seniors could become future educators. They go through the courses. They are inside of our classrooms. They're starting to learn and see what it's like. And so this was just a natural progression, building out an aspiring educator pathway to be able to set that up. We wanted to have them to be paid and have a full paid opportunity. We wanted them to be in the classroom for most of their days, between the regular hours of 8 to 4, just like our teachers. We wanted them to be in the classroom alongside of our teachers, learning and understanding what it's like to be a teacher from day one. We wanted them to feel that team-based approach, working directly with a mentor, partnering with them, being a collaborative individual so that they could give input and really shape what the teaching career could look like in the future.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Klemenz. I'm the Assistant Director of Talent Management here for the Cherry Creek School District. This is my 16th year in education, and before this year, I was a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teacher, as well as an instructional coach in our schools. I also was a student in the Cherry Creek School District and then student taught here. So I am the example of grow your own. So we're happy to be here today. So as Brenda mentioned, our Aspiring Educator Pathway really does mirror itself with a medical residency. Of our apprentices are in classrooms for 4 years. Now, they are full-time in their classrooms for 4 years, with a couple exceptions I will get to in just a minute. But they are learning, they are seeing, they have the permission to just observe for a year before I do it myself. Or maybe some of our apprentices in secondary might observe during first period and then try something during second period, and really build up their skills, which is based on a medical residency program. They have hands-on experiences. They have a mentor one-on-one with them at all times to ask questions, to be collaborating with someone else in a classroom, and really get the chance to practice and get feedback and refine their craft for 4 years before they are in a classroom potentially all on their own. So with that, the traditional model, as many of us experience through higher ed institutes, is you learn content knowledge first, then it's very linear, the art of teaching, professional development, and then finally, during your student teaching, for me personally, it was 16 weeks, 1 semester right before I graduated was my time to practice. And in that model, you are remembering, wait, what did I learn about the theory of classroom management? Or what do all of these things look like that you put into practice for 16 weeks, and then you get your first teaching job. Now, as Brenda shared, the data around teacher retention does not show that we are effectively preparing our teachers to be successful on their own. And when we surveyed our teachers, it was so much came back around the lack of practice. And now they were thrown into a classroom by themselves, potentially at 22 years old, with only having a semester to practice all of these things they've learned, and they did not feel prepared. So we flipped that model. At the heart of what we do is practice. And so again, teachers are with us for 4 years. They are practicing every single day. Now, I spoke earlier that we do provide professional development, content knowledge, as well as their coursework, so that they are earning their bachelor's degrees along with us, but they are practicing what it means to be a teacher in the art of teaching every single day. So I will give you an example today. Right down the hall, our apprentices are with us in a professional development session. Tomorrow, they go right back into their classrooms where they are practicing what they learned today. And so we really left the linear model for a really cyclical model of how are we providing them to practice what they've learned immediately so that they can refine their craft and get better. And that has been at the heart of our pathway. As Brenda also spoke to earlier, the traditional model of student teaching for a semester was about 750 hours of practice. That is also assuming that they took over the day they started in the classroom and finished the day they left in the classroom, which we know is not always the case for student teachers. However, our aspiring educators in their 4 years with us, by the time they leave, they will have over 4,500 hours of real world classroom practice with students in front of them and one-on-one paired with a mentor teacher who is able to give them real-time feedback so that they can grow even just in the moment. So our Aspiring Educator Pathway has a lot of on-ramps, as we like to call them. So Brenda spoke to our FEP, which is students in our Future Educator Pathway. We do have a youth apprenticeship for juniors and seniors who are interested in the field of education. So some of our apprentices come from the Future Educator Pathway straight to the Aspiring Educator Pathway. Most of our apprentices come in at an apprentice level 1 or 2. Now, these are noted by Colorado Department of Education. The biggest difference between a 1 and 2 or a 3 and 4 are that the 3 and 4 has completed 60 hours of degree coursework that is aligned with their education bachelor's degree. And so people can move through apprentice level 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Once they graduate as an apprentice from us, that means that they have completed their bachelor's degree and they are ready to apply for teacher licensure. Now, we hope to bring them back on as a probationary teacher. And then we really do hope that as they continue their journey in Cherry Creek, they're excited to be a mentor teacher. We have gotten a lot of questions on, after all of this, do we require them to stay in Cherry Creek and be a probationary teacher with us? The answer is no. We want people who want to be in Cherry Creek. And so we don't ever want to force someone or require someone to stay here if maybe life has different opportunities. Now, we hope that in these 4 years, they can't wait to continue to be a part of the Cherry Creek School District. Many of our current apprentices have already said they can't wait to get a job with us. However, that is not something that we require. So our pay scale. This is this year's pay scale. We do pay our apprentices. So they are paid for 4 years. They also are eligible for benefits, and they are also paying into our retirement program, which we like to say, if they only knew how great that would be when they will have enough years to retire at 50 years old, that so many of us wish we had those years ahead of time. So we pay them based on 2 factors. Number 1, how many credits they come in with. So some of our apprentices have associate's degrees or sort of a hodgepodge of college credits differently. We do honor those credits, and we also honor years of experience within our school district. We have many individuals who were paras or who were future educators, and so we want to make sure we honor that. So this is our pay scale. At the lowest step, apprentices make $38,000 per year. They are also getting their bachelor's degree while being full-time in a classroom. This is actually a little bit more than they would make if they were paraprofessionals, and then less than what our certified teachers would make. Now, we get a lot of questions as well about the mentors. So mentors, this picture is a perfect example. The woman on the left is the mentor, and then the man on the right is the apprentice. The mentor is a certified classroom teacher She does receive a stipend. All of our mentors receive a stipend of $12,000 for the additional work, the reflection, the explaining why, the practicing, the coaching of each apprentice. And we realize that that is above and beyond their job description. Now we do a lot of differentiated professional development for mentors on how do you mentor an apprentice, which also requires some additional time, which goes into that mentor stipend as a factor.
And I just also, I'm Tamara Spidel, by the way. I'm the Senior Officer of Talent Management for the Cherry Creek School District. Very excited to be here today to talk about this. The other thing that I would like to add to what Melissa just shared about the salary schedule is that if our apprentices have been with us their full 4 years, and then they start with us and we hire them as a certified teacher, they're going to start on step 5 of the pay scale. So we will give them credit for the amount of time that they worked as an apprentice in the classroom, which is also really great because as Brenda referenced earlier on in our presentation, the attractiveness of the teaching profession is not great here in Colorado, but across the nation. And so one of the things that we really feel is important is not only is this about improving teacher preparation, but like it also is going to hopefully reduce some of that stress around the just being prepared, being efficacious in the classroom once they get their certified position, and also that they're not going to have to worry too much about that student loan debt. We really want them to have little to no student loan debt when they're finished. So, this is really important. We also know that how this is improving our teachers is that we know traditional teacher prep is often disconnected from, they're learning about theory. It's very disconnected from what's happening in the real classroom. And so our model blends coursework, mentorship, on-the-job learning to really ensure that our apprentices are entering the teaching profession classroom ready. They have the skills, they have the mindsets, and the relationships that they need to be successful. Go ahead, Melissa. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier too about some of the components of what this is. So not only are our apprentices employees of the Cherry Creek School District, but they are also students. And so this, I would say, part of the strength of our program really lies in this structure. So our apprentices are working full-time in classrooms while they are earning their bachelor's degree. They're co-teaching, they're receiving coaching, they attend learning labs and seminars, which they are earning credit for. And so this really isn't just about exposure to what's happening in the classroom. It's really giving them guided, scaffolded growth within that real world school classroom, so that it's very applicable and in the moment. Go ahead. So Brenda talked earlier too about, it was very important for us to find the right higher education partnership. We really needed a partner who was going to be willing to be innovative and really roll up their sleeves and dig into this work with us. And so we know that this higher ed partner is playing a very critical role as a part of this apprenticeship pathway. So we worked closely with the Community College of Aurora and basically co-designed a degree that is prioritizing that apprenticeship experience. The faculty that are teaching many of these classes are actually adjunct professors who are working in Cherry Creek schools right now. So they know exactly what the day-to-day school experience is like in Cherry Creek classrooms. They know what our apprentices are going through. And so what that has enabled us to do is to better align coursework and practice. The other thing that's really nice too is that having our own adjunct professors, it allows some flexibility. So we're able to hold sessions on site here in some of our Cherry Creek buildings and also on the Community College of Aurora campus. They're also really great in working with us to adjust schedules so that we can help build out the schedule for when our apprentices are attending courses on campus and are away from the schoolhouse or away from some of our district buildings getting their professional learning credits. So like I said, it's a very unique degree plan. This isn't your typical degree path. We have really removed a lot of unnecessary barriers. We've streamlined coursework, and we are very focused on competencies that matter most in our schools and to become the best teachers that they can be. So we are giving credit for demonstrated mastery of what it is that they're learning. We want to make sure that everything in this pathway also reflects our values as the Cherry Creek School District. So that's equity, growth mindset, relationships, engagement, whole well-being. So our apprentices are really immersed in learning in a system that is prioritizing that culture that we are very proud of here in Cherry Creek. And so we're not just preparing teachers, but we're actually growing the educators that we want in our own classrooms long term. So we have very clear learning progressions. We have worked very closely with CCA to identify what does growth look like? How are we progressing as apprentices into the teacher model step by step? And that really also helps us to track their progress consistently as they're working through this program. So I would say that really that interconnected coursework is kind of what the apprentices is sort of connecting the dots of that, because what they're learning in their coursework can immediately be applied in the classroom. They go to, their learning labs, they're getting mentoring and coaching, they're doing a lot of reflecting, and these cycles that they're going through are keeping that momentum going, really helping them to see how this is relevant to becoming a great teacher for our students. So, and I'll give you, if you want to change to the next slide, Melissa. This is this is an example of our 4-year pathway. Like I said, they are competency and inquiry-based courses. They have a heavy emphasis on reflection and application. And the assignments are often stemming from real classroom challenges, and the facilitators of learning for these are designing their instruction with that apprentice experience in mind so that the learning is feeling relevant and actionable. So the courses, this is just kind of an example. I'm sure that's very hard to read, but our apprenticeship courses are really designed to spiral. We want the key concepts and the skills to be revisited over time rather than just taught in isolation as they're progressing through a linear pathway. This is very much a spiral because things that they've learned in year 1 are going to come back again in year 2, because we know that that is just the cycle of teaching. And this also ensures that learning isn't just a one-time event. It builds continuously, it builds intentionally. And because our apprentices are actively working in classrooms, they can immediately apply what they're learning. They can reflect on those experiences, and then they come back with those real world insights that strengthen their understanding of the coursework. So it is definitely an ongoing cycle of learning, application, reflection that we have found to make the professional growth, professional learning that they're doing more relevant, more dynamic, and more impactful.
And Tamara, before you move into the recruiting and how we did it, we do have a question in the chat. So I wanted to clarify just a couple things. The question from Nikki Jones is, how do the apprentices pay? We get a lot of questions around, how do you afford this? How do you afford to pay for an apprentice to be alongside of a teacher? Most of the FTE that we receive, we will have 40 total AEPs next year. We had 16 this year, mainly because we were on a tight schedule last year to get started. But all of those are really unfilled para positions. I'm sure you have a lot of unfilled positions in your districts. We have a lot of unfilled para positions. So the savings actually that we have based on those unfilled para positions are where we get the FTE. The other question that Nikki asked is around, how do the apprentice pay? One of the biggest pieces, and the reason why we partnered with the Community College of Aurora, is they were willing to work with us around costs and what does that look like. Up until this year, they really were only a 2-year degree program. They got for 2 years, and then they would have to seek a higher institution that would offer a 4-year degree. CCA has been approved by our state in order to be that 4-year institution. So our students will be able to go all the way through the Community College of Aurora for 4 years in order to get their actual degree program. It will cost them less than $16,000 total for the entire 4 years. The first group, last year's group, because of student aid and working with the Community College of Aurora, they didn't pay a cent to go to school. We had a lot of individuals that stepped up even when it came to books and fees, and we were able to get all of that paid for those students. But in the future, it will cost less than $16,000 for these individuals, which is a huge shift. So if you're making $40,000 and you're paying less than $4,000 a year to go to school, you should hopefully walk away with zero debt at the end of it. So hopefully that clarified your question, Nikki. Sorry, Tamara, just wanted to pop in and answer that question before you.
Perfect. Now that was perfect timing for that. And I realized that, yes, that was something that we left out of how does this actually help reduce that student loan debt. Those of you who are parents of college students like I am and like Brenda is, we know that this is an amazing opportunity for these apprentices to get out with a 4-year degree for about the same price that I am paying for my child to have a semester at a state college here in Colorado. So we also want to ensure that we're bringing the very best into our program. We are very intentional. We have an application process to help us identify individuals who have the commitment, the mindset, and really that potential to thrive. And we also are really focused on ensuring that the recruiting that we're doing, we would like to reflect the diversity of our community. We know that students deserve to see educators who look like them. And so by recruiting the best, we have reimagined some of this recruitment. I'm going to get into that here in a second, to really start addressing some of those the challenges with how do we select people, how do we attract people, how do we recruit them in, and how do we keep them here. We have partnered with TrueFit Talent that has really worked to incorporate some neuroscience and AI and co-intelligence to create a way for us to help identify the top talent that we want to bring in to this program. So the next slide, we'll have a little bit of an example here. So again, I apologize, this is very hard for you to see, I'm sure, but working together with TrueFit Talent, what we have done is they met with us. We gave them some insight into here's the job description, here are the competencies that we know will create that someone needs in order to be successful as an apprentice, but then also as a mentor or as a teacher. And so what we did was we kind of defined this golden archetype and helped to define what are the ideal apprentice characteristics based on those competencies. So what we did was partnered with TrueFit. They have some structured self-assessments that they had every applicant in that applied to the position was invited to participate in this self-assessment, in which they did a couple of things. The first was a polarity assessment, which really helped to identify how do you prefer to work? Are you the type of person who really wants to dig in and figure things out on their own? Or do you need direct instruction, direct step-by-step guidance? And there are no wrong answers. It was really a way for us to determine how do you prefer to work? How do you prefer to learn? So that when matching them with a mentor, we could try to find a great pairing that was going to support the way that this apprentice prefers to work and learn. And so they complete this polarity assessment. And then the other piece is they had an opportunity to do some simulations where they were given a scenario and they were interacting with basically a bot to see how they, how does their judgment show up if they're in a conversation with a parent about a concern that they have about their student. How do you interact with that parent? And then all together, those things were combined to kind of show us how aligned these candidates were with that golden archetype that we created together. So you can tell, I mean, our application obviously goes beyond more than just the basics, like give us your resume. We're really looking for alignment to our district core values. It's important that we are bringing people in who are open to feedback and who have a true desire to grow as an educator. So the other component, as we said, so not only are these apprentices students, but they are also employees. So, you know, it's a very unique situation that they are in. And so we also evaluate our apprentices just as we would any other employee, different than them receiving, you know, their grades and competency scores for the coursework that they're doing. So we have, again, like we keep talking about this clear set of competencies. And so as our apprentices are coming to the end of their level 2 year, we evaluate their performance as employees, and we use that employee document that basically is saying, you know, what are the competencies we've identified in professionalism, communication, that are not necessarily on the teacher evaluation rubric, because the teacher evaluation rubric is also a part of how we evaluate their performance. In order for an apprentice to exit a level 2 apprentice, they have to demonstrate that they are competent in teacher quality standard 2 indicators and elements. Those of you in Colorado understand what that is. There's kind of an example here on the screen, that rubric there. Again, these evaluations are separate from their coursework. They're really focusing on how they show up in their school roles from a day-to-day basis. And so we are very excited and intentional about aligning our expectations of an apprentice with those expectations for licensed teachers, which is why we also incorporate that teacher quality, teacher evaluation rubric. And that really is helpful for us and mentors, because next year the mentors are going to be the ones that do the heavy lifting of these evaluations. This year, it was basically Melissa and myself with input from their mentor, but next year their mentors are really taking this on. And it's a great way to really give meaningful feedback and help determine next steps in their pathway to become the best teachers they can be. So here is kind of our current state and where we're headed. So this was our very first year of implementation. So we are still growing this program out. We have, we started with 16 apprentices. One left us halfway through the year because we also have high expectations for how they are showing up in their coursework. And so if they are not able to pass their classes in their coursework, then that is a contingency of their employment as an apprentice with us. And you can see there 65% of this first group of apprentices are educators of color, 20% of them male. 20% of these also went through the Future Educator Pathway as high school students in our district. So they went through a youth apprenticeship pathway they've already got courses, and they already have over 2,000 hours of that apprenticeship time in the classroom. And we were really excited that almost half of them attended and graduated from Cherry Creek schools. So as we are moving into the 25-26 year, we have, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have 4 elementary and 2 middle schools that will continue on to be Aspiring Educator Pathway sites. We will eventually bring on a high school, but we weren't quite ready to do that yet this year. So that's a little bit further down the road. But we will be placing our apprentices in multiple schools across the district. We have recruited more strong mentors who are very excited, dedicated, and proven educators in our system, because we want our apprentices to learn from the best. So as Brenda said, we're going to have about 40 apprentices total next school year. So that will include this cohort 1 from this year and the incoming cohort 2. It's been really exciting because we have a lot of interest and a lot of momentum that we're gaining across the system. So that being said, as with any new initiative, we have made some mid-course corrections. We've improved how we communicate expectations. We've added support for professionalism, college coursework, strengthened that mentor-apprentice matching process, and really worked with our principals to help clarify roles, accountability structures. We are very much, we roll up our sleeves and dig right into. We are listening, learning, taking feedback, because we want to continue to improve this and make this better every year. So the first thing that we really learned was that some apprentices misunderstood aspects of the program, particularly around completing college coursework during work hours. So therefore, we added these supported study sessions to provide time for them to get together as a cohort to work on their college coursework, because when they were spending time in the schoolhouse working on their college courses, that was taking away from their on-the-job learning hours, and we know that they need a minimum of 4,500 of those. So we adjusted that and built in some time for them so that they could work together, support each other, connect with college professors if necessary, to just continue to support their learning and their coursework that they were completing. So the other thing was just, we also learned that some of our apprentices were struggling to figure out, how do I balance coursework with school-based responsibilities? Sometimes they were showing up just like they needed a break in class and they were being off task. So we had to really talk about professionalism. And so along with those required supported study sessions, we're also reinforcing, let's talk about time management skills. Let's talk about how do we send an appropriate email to people, just so that we can ensure that they're staying on track academically and professionally. We do have, like I said, our mentor-apprentice pairing process. We adapted a conflict resolution process so that if and when, this wasn't a huge issue, but if and when an apprentice and a mentor are not seeing eye to eye, we've got some structures in place to support and give some tiered support before we decide if we're going to make a change in a pairing. And I talked a little bit about the evaluations. There was initial confusion, like, how are we evaluating them? Who is evaluating them? And so we were really grateful that we had identified some competencies that we could then take and build an evaluation around. So we've got the one that is different from the teacher quality standards, just so that we could also align it to the competencies we want in an apprentice as an employee. And then just continuing to build more support for our mentor teachers and our principals. Some of our mentors felt like they weren't really sure that they had all the tools to provide the level of coaching and support that they needed, especially when apprentices were struggling with professionalism or classroom management or staying on top of courses. And so we have adapted some of those seminars that we have. Our mentors attend seminars with their apprentices. We're able to differentiate those to provide some more support around how do you mentor, how do you coach, while supporting apprentices with some of those pieces around professionalism. So we're able to differentiate for both of those groups.
Another lesson that we learned before we go on, and we were really intentional from the beginning about this, is we partnered very early on with our teachers union, and having the Teachers Association alongside us truly from the very beginning, helping to lay the foundation, was critical for us in making sure this was a success, making sure that we supported mentors accordingly, but also as we continue on through the Colorado Department of Education, that is a requirement for them as well, which we are all set for because we really brought on our association from the very beginning.
I think additionally to what Tamara and Melissa just said, part of what we are looking at to expand into next year is to not only just offer the 4-year degree program in education, but also including next year, we will be able to offer, not next year, but when we build out next year, math, science, and special education, which are our two highest demand areas inside of our school district where we see fewer and fewer candidates coming out. And so we'll be working with CCA and some additional outside partners to build those out. We also have some individuals that want to go down the music path, or they want to become a PE teacher. We're trying to figure out different pathways for them to ensure that we're not just going to pigeonhole them into one specific direction. We want them to be able to choose. And so our district is all about pathway and pathway of purpose. And the direction for us, not only with our kids, how do we give them their pathway to purpose, but also if we know that, you know, retention is the new recruitment, how do we give those options to the rest of our 11,000 employees? Because we do know if you saw the groups that we have brought together, we have individuals that were security guards that are now inside of this pathway. We have individuals that were paras. We have individuals that have done multiple other jobs and have now decided this is the direction that they want to go. And so our mindset really inside of Cherry Creek is how do we present that pathway for anyone that might want to go down the teaching road. Part of that too is just the life cycle of an employee. And we talk a lot about our comprehensive professional learning plan and what does that look like. And so part of why we're doing this is we want to provide those pathways, and we really want to ensure that we have the best of the best inside of Cherry Creek working alongside of our kids. Something that we just hot off the presses, we actually have data currently right now around the classrooms that have had our AEPs alongside of the mentors. We do not have a slide on that, but if you're interested and want to know more, we'll have that additional information available very soon on how the impact to the classroom has been significant when you have the mentor teacher along with the AEP inside of there. We use Qualtrics in order to survey and find out and share and improve. And this truly shows how the life cycle of an employee, including an AEP, how we gain feedback through them in order to continue to improve this process and this program. I know all of you out there have 48 states have passed this legislation, so all of you have the opportunity potentially to go down this path. I do know that there's some questions in the chat around where are our documents posted. We don't have them posted just yet, but we'd be happy at the very end of this presentation, you have our emails. We'd be happy to provide any documents for you along with the competencies of how we built out our competencies for our AEPs. We'd be happy to share that. So how we want to end today is we'd like to share with you a video of what our Aspiring Educator Pathway has looked like in Cherry Creek for the past year.
Maybe
if it works.
Cherry Creek Schools is recognized as one of the top public school districts in the country for many reasons, but most importantly for its high-quality teachers. Ranked #1 in Colorado for teacher satisfaction, Cherry Creek Schools is known for empowering and supporting its teachers to ensure the best possible outcome for students. As an aspiring educator, you will be in a classroom alongside an experienced mentor teacher, planning lessons and teaching students daily. From day one, you will be a salaried, benefit-eligible employee while gaining invaluable classroom experience. Aspiring educators will have the opportunity to earn a bachelor's in education with little to no student debt. Upon successful completion of the program, participants will be ready to apply for a teaching license and eligible to apply for teaching positions. The Aspiring Educator Pathway provides future educators with over 4,500 hours of hands-on classroom experience. This helps to prevent teacher burnout and develop better prepared new teachers, leading to improved student learning outcomes. Join us as we reimagine the teaching and learning environment and elevate the teaching profession.
no.
Oh, and with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. If there's any questions, Joey, do you want to just open it up and have them ask questions, however you want to do this?
Absolutely. I'll just sort of surface a few that have come through and wonder if we have already covered some of this, because I know you responded to a few during the presentation and some of these may have been answered. But one of the questions that came early on in the conversation from Dana was whether or not the learning progression documents are public, or if you wouldn't mind sharing them.
So I think I think in the fall, these will be available in the Community College Aurora course catalog. So I know that those should be available hopefully this fall.
If not, and then Michael, you had asked a similar question. If not, like Brenda said, you are welcome to reach out to us. Tamara is probably the best one for that. And our emails are right on the screen, but we are happy to share anything that might help you get started as well.
And then in addition, in terms of other questions that have come through, I can surface for us. Are the full 4-year degree path requirements available anywhere? Because one of our participants wasn't able to find them on the website. And we'd love to see if we could hear an answer to that one.
That should be available in the fall on the Community College of Aurora's website as a part of their course catalog.
And
But again,
are you all also pursuing CAPE accreditation? Or any other accreditations?
Oh,
Brenda, we
Brenda,
can't
you're
hear you.
muted.
Sorry, it's fine. CCA is in the process of going through the accreditation. We will have the program accredited by the start of the fall semester.
Wonderful. Let me see. I think there was one more. Can you share anything about what the secondary program will look like, since you're talking about bringing on a high school?
Yeah, so we know that while we know the teacher pipeline is getting smaller, we also know that there are some content areas that are specifically seeing that are more hard to fill. So we're really starting with that math and science, as well as a special education pathway. So we will be having mentors in science and math at the high school. We already have those at the middle school level. So we'll be able to provide that grade 7 through 12 experience for that secondary math or science endorsement.
We did have a couple questions in the chat. So Brenda, would you speak to what has been the level of commitment or support by our superintendent?
The FEP program, our Future Educator program, was actually the superintendent's idea. And this program has really been, especially because he is all about pathways and pathways for kids and pathways for adults. This has been one area where he has been very committed to, not only with giving us additional FTE in order to build this program out, but he's been at the forefront talking about it, working with CDE, which is the Colorado Department of Education. And we actually have a Colorado Department of Education visit this Friday. So we have our Commissioner of Education coming out, along with some of our legislators, and really he's been the biggest support and really the drive of why we're doing this.
And then Nikki, you had asked if there is a district person, as Brenda spoke to FTE, dedicated to ongoing school visits to monitor progress and support the needs of the apprentices. Yes, we do. That is me. I am in classrooms often to do all of those things, coach our mentors, coach our apprentices, provide feedback. I give feedback, and then a lot of times I'll debrief it with the aspiring educators to continue to grow. I am also part of all of their professional development and learning. And so giving feedback that aligns to what they just learned really reiterates that cycle of practicing what they have learned around. But that does require additional staffing to have someone to be able to go in there and really provide the live support in the moment. Do we have any?
You all have covered it all. And what I love is that not only have you responded to these questions, but what I've heard is that these were questions that actually were sort of folded into the presentation throughout. So thank you for not only reiterating the responses at the end, but also for being mindful to really create so much good content that answered a lot of questions throughout. One of the questions I wanted to bring forward has to do with just the general experience of teachers. What has been the qualitative data that you have collected from participants in the program? What have they said? How have they engaged? And how has this changed sort of the whole culture of recruitment in the district?
Our mentors, many of them have said that they don't know how they will ever go back to being in a classroom by themselves without an apprentice with them. They really are co-teaching all day long, and they have said that for now, until the rest of their career, they'll have to have an apprentice with them because this has changed their teaching practices. As Brenda said too, our data also reflects that. And so it's been overwhelmingly positive. Our apprentices have said that they would not want to go any other pathway because of the hands-on experience that they get every single day. And in our program, we've given them permission to fail. It's okay if you fail today because you'll practice it again tomorrow, where sometimes in that 16-week chunk of student teaching, that time is not always allotted.
And we had 105 applicants. No, 121. Is that right, Tamara?
Yes,
121 to be part of this program. And so overwhelmingly, I mean, last year, I think we had close to 30. This year we had 121. So people are starting to hear about it, know about it, want to be part of it. And so the quality of candidates are just, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Also, I see Michael, didn't feel like we answered the question around the having math and science. So CCA is also, we're working with them to build out. So the students, the apprentices will be taking coursework through CCA around those math and science degree requirements as well. So they will be getting that coursework delivered through the college, community college system. I hope that answers your question better.
This has been stellar.
Yeah,
Any
there's one
points?
more
Yes.
question,
Go
Joey,
ahead.
about do the candidates, are they required to take state certification exams? They are, and we support them through that. So we have one individual that was inside of our program that was struggling with passing the state exam, and we've worked directly with her to either go down that alternative path or to be successful on that overall state test. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Wonderful. Well, Brenda, Tamara, and Melissa, you all have provided a comprehensive overview of a solution that is complex and responsive and impactful. So thank you for sharing this with us here at AAEE and for providing us with a time to be able to ask good questions and engage in some post-presentation dialogue. As our time together today comes to a close, I want to thank all of our attendees for taking time out of your schedule to be with us and remind you that at the end of this conversation, I was going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming conference, the AAEE 2025 conference and annual career fair will be from October 27th to the 30th. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where our theme is building bridges, connecting knowledge, communities, and futures. So we would love to see all of you there to be able to continue these important conversations and to have the opportunity to do the important work of building community in person. So with that being said, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll make sure to follow up putting this presentation on the AAEE website so that you're able to watch the recording and continue to learn on your own. Brenda, Tamara, and Melissa, thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Looking very much forward to continuing this good work together. Bye-bye, everyone.